Warning: to Canadian travelers, check your travel insurance. Fine print. Imagine this. You have finally arrived at your vacation destination after months of anticipation and dreaming about it. You have reserved the flights, packed your belongings, and accumulated the necessary funds. Perhaps it is a trip to Disney World in Florida, a visit to a beach in Mexico, a tour of Europe, or a journey to Australia. It is expected that everything would be enjoyable and without any worries. However, your idyllic vacation is transformed into a nightmare when a medical issue arises unexpectedly. You make your way to the hospital as quickly as possible, receive the necessary medical attention, and then assume that your travel insurance will cover you. You then proceed to open a letter weeks later, only to be shocked by its contents. A bill from the hospital for over $100,000. This is not a hypothetical scenario. The incident occurred to a woman from British Columbia, Canada, who goes by the name of Roseanne Timbrell. She was under the impression that she had done everything correctly. She had extended health insurance via her employment. She made sure to double-check her coverage before traveling, and she even went so far as to call her provider before she went to the hospital in Florida. However, none of that was of any importance. She received a bill that has the potential to completely alter the course of her life after spending 5 days in a hospital in the United States. Roseanne was not feeling as well as she could have before setting off on her trip. She went to her doctor, took a blood test, and received reassurance that she was not suffering from any serious conditions. This course of action is what most responsible people would take when experiencing symptoms similar to those of the flu. She came to the conclusion that she was in good enough health to travel because she still had the ability to work. However, when she arrived in Florida, her condition deteriorated, and she made the decision to go to the emergency department. She contacted her insurance provider to inquire about whether or not she was insured, since she did not want to find herself in a situation where she would have to pay a bill herself. They gave her permission to go, so she proceeded with her plans to go to the hospital. Ovarian cancer was the diagnosis that was given, and it was awful. She received 5 days of treatment and underwent a series of examinations. Soon after she arrived back in Canada, the relief she had felt rapidly turned into sorrow. Her allegation was found to be inadmissible. The insurance company made reference to something known as a stability clause, which stipulated that any medical condition that existed previous to the trip had to stay stable for a period of 90 days before travel could commence. Her insurance coverage was invalid due to the fact that she had gone to see her doctor not long before her trip. Her decision to take what she believed was a precaution that was part of her normal practice has now resulted in her losing $108,000. Despite the fact that they are included in innumerable policies, the majority of people have never heard of stability provisions. The specifics are sometimes concealed under dense fine print, and some individuals need 3 months of stability, while others require 6. A lot of people who travel make the assumption that their employment insurance or the privileges that come with their credit card would protect them when they are in a foreign country. But the reality of the situation is far more complicated. Roseanne's experiences serve as an example of just how simple it is for any person to get drawn into this predicament. And it brings up a frightening question. If we were to become sick or wounded while traveling, how many of us would be financially ruined? Considering the notoriety that the healthcare prices in the United States have developed, it is tempting to dismiss this as an issue that is exclusive to the United States. However, the painful reality is that it is possible for this to occur anywhere. If you leave Canada, you will not be able to take use of the country's universal healthcare system. You are simply another immigrant who requires medical attention, whether you are in Europe, Asia, Australia, or any other location. If you do not have adequate travel insurance, you are completely dependent on the local system, as well as the fee that accompanies it. When I was living in another nation that did not have universal health care, I had a similar experience, albeit on a smaller scale. I went to see a doctor for a basic examination after I had experienced a bout of food sickness. Instead of simply departing once my session was over, for the first time in my life, I was given a medical bill. Even though it was not even close to $100,000, I was nevertheless taken by surprise. Fortunately, the company that I work for took care of everything. For the average person living in the area, however, the decision was clear: either pay for medical care out of pocket or simply endure the pain. That is a decision that far too many Americans are familiar with. This fact is made abundantly evident through the stories that come from the United States. Hernias developed in a young man who was making $60,000 a year. He was eventually given the correct diagnosis after going to the emergency hospital numerous times, where he was initially informed by the doctors that there was nothing to worry about, and then he was given antibiotics. The price of the surgical procedure that he required amounted to $56,000. To put it another way, after only a few hours of treatment, the work that had been done over the course of a year vanished. There was another woman who was hospitalized for 3 days and was charged $83,000, with $10,000 of that amount being solely for the bed she used. Once again, an individual went to the emergency hospital complaining of tingling in her hands. She stayed in the waiting room for 3 hours, but she never had the opportunity to see a doctor. Despite this, she still left with a charge for $3,800. She was still responsible for paying $700 for practically no care at all, even after her insurance company applied a discount. Consider the decisions that individuals are compelled to make when they find themselves in that predicament. There are some Americans who publicly acknowledge that they would prefer to ride out their diseases in the comfort of their own homes and trust that everything will turn out all right, rather than take the chance of incurring debilitating medical debt. It is extremely uncommon for Canadians to even consider those concepts in their thoughts. You should go if you require medical attention from a physician. You return if your symptoms are not consistent with your expectations. You are never required to swipe your credit card merely to get your name on the list, even if you may have to wait longer than you would want. Canadians are not the only people who are aware of the distinction that exists. The United Kingdom asked regular civilians to estimate the price of medical treatments in the United States of America. Upon being informed that an ambulance may cost as much as $1,200, that a hip replacement could cost as much as $40,000, or that hospitals occasionally charge an additional $40 just for a mother to hold her newborn child after birth, they burst out laughing in disbelief. One man put it best when he stated that although the National Health Service, NHS, may not be without its faults, he was glad that it saved his life without leaving him financially ruined. This is the reason why the narrative of Roseanne is important. It is not only about the shortcomings of the United States' healthcare system, even how terrible those shortcomings may be. It is related to the dangers that each and every one of us encounters when we are traveling. When we go on vacation, we do not visit countries where any of us hold citizenship. We are individuals who have never met before and are required to depend on insurance in the event that anything goes awry. Furthermore, if we do not have a clear understanding of the scope of our policy's coverage, we could find ourselves in the same terrifying predicament that Roseanne did. Therefore, the issue that we really need to ask ourselves is this: how many of us actually comprehend the travel insurance coverage that we have? Aside from the rewards and glossy brochures, how many of us have actually read beyond that? What number of us are prepared to run the chance that the fine print will not be applicable to our situation? Here is the truth of the matter. When we travel, we are expected to feel happy, refreshed, and eager. However, a single unanticipated illness or disaster may wipe away years of savings and leave a financial scar that will last for far longer than any trip if the proper protection is not in place. The story of Roseanne serves as a reminder that the most crucial item in your suitcase isn't your passport or your credit card. It is the insurance policy that you hope you never have to use, but it is essential that you completely understand it. I would like to ask you one more question. If you were to board an airplane tomorrow and something were to go wrong while you were abroad, would you be absolutely certain that your insurance would cover you? Or, like Roseanne, will you have to learn about it the hard way? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.